My final guest is Joe Simoes, the planner for the town of Clarkstown. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
So, Joe, I'm delighted to have you on our program for a lot of different reasons. You're a local boy, made good, but more importantly, I think that our planning department here in the town of Clarkstown is really second to none, and I've had some experience with the planning department well before I became supervisor, or even as a councilman, having served as a member of the town planning board for 5 years. So I think it's a really great opportunity to be able to have our residents learn a little bit about one of our key departments by speaking with you and having you share some information about planning here in the town of Clarkstown. So before we get to what the town planner does in our town planning department, let's just talk a little bit about yourself. Maybe for our residents, you could give a little bit of an overview about your background, where you're from, and what brought you into Clarkstown.
So I was actually raised in Valley Cottage, went to elementary school at St. Paul's. I graduated from Albertus High School in '94, went to Fairfield University actually for a Bachelor of Science in Biology. A lot of people wonder how I went from biology to planning, but I actually had an interest in environmental sciences and environmental studies. So I went to the University of Virginia actually for environmental planning, and I graduated there in 2000. Came back home, had gotten an internship at the county planning department in 1999 when I was home for the summer, and I came back and they hired me. So I started at the county, actually doing reviews for Clarkstown for 3 years, and the town had always used a consultant and decided they wanted to actually start up a planning department, have somebody on staff, and kind of headhunted me over in 2003, and I've been here ever since. So I've actually been doing Clarkstown development reviews since 2000.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I know our residents and for our viewers, they'll know a number of these names, but certainly it was under the administration of Supervisor Hoehm.
Right.
And the head of the planning board at the time was Mr. Richard Paris, Dick Paris. Wonderful gentleman. He doesn't live locally anymore, but he had been on the planning board for very many years and was the chairman of the planning board. I remember speaking with him about really the desire at that point to start to look to kind of build the planning department by having a full-time town planner on staff, and which I think has really been essential to Clarkstown, really stepping it up from a planning perspective, so we don't have some of the situations that we've seen in places like Ramapo, unfortunately, across the county. For the benefits of our viewers, what does the town planner do? What are some of the tasks and things that you would be involved with, so that our residents really have an understanding of what happens in the planning department?
Sure. So I like to break it down between kind of short-range planning and long-range planning. So the short-range planning is really development reviews, site plans and subdivisions that come in, all run through the planning department, and then we run it through the environmental review process and run it and kind of guide it through the planning board. Same thing with site plans. So I like to say anything from as large as the Palisade Center to a local business wanting to put on a small addition requires a site plan approval, and they come to my department. And like I said, it's the environmental review, and just there's a lot of state and federal local regulations that people have to deal with to get things developed. There's also letting the public know, having them participate, having that public outreach, explaining the plans to people. So they understand, what it is that's being proposed, that the environmental impacts are all being studied and mitigated. So my department handles that on the short range. The long range is really comprehensive planning. That's coming up with the vision for how we want the town to develop, and that's the basis for our zoning and our zoning code. So we're a fully functional department. We work not only on those short-range plans, but we've developed our own comprehensive plan in-house. We use some consultants for some of the more complicated studies, but that was pretty much done all in-house, and we've been implementing it in-house. We down to actually developing the legislation and working on the zoning code. So I think that's an added value, I think, to the town, to have a planning department that can do things soup to nuts. in terms of planning. We don't necessarily need a consultant to help us, and we're all working in the department for the good of the town.
Sure. So, and I know that I'm very proud of some of the efforts that have taken place in the past number of years. Happened to be a member of the planning board from 2004 until 2009 when I became a member of the town board before I was supervisor. And I can assure our viewers that certainly that was probably the best opportunity to really learn about our town, being a member of the planning board, and really kind of understanding the land use process from that perspective and from that level. And I can tell you that I'm very proud of the fact that our comprehensive plan, which I chaired the comprehensive plan implementation committee, certainly our comprehensive plan is second to none. And maybe you could speak a little bit about our comprehensive plan that you really kind of quarterbacked with
Sure.
With the planning department, and why it's so unique.
So our comprehensive plan is actually modeled after an environmental impact statement. So New York state law, environmental law, is the State Environmental Quality Review Act, requires that any decisions, any actions that affect the land, any land use actions, go through an environmental review process. And there's an assumption that any type of comprehensive plan that's going to change zoning, has the impact to affect the environment, you would typically develop what's called an environmental impact statement. That's something that's much more extensive in terms of a review. So kind of a little known section of the State Environmental Quality Review Act is that you can model your comprehensive plan as an environmental impact statement. You don't have to necessarily create a comp plan and then study all the impacts. You can have the comp plan study the impacts of land use built into the document. So that's what we did. We basically killed two birds with one stone. We needed to do an environmental impact statement as part of the comp plan, so we combined them together. So when we went through the different issues that are outlined in state law in terms of environmental impacts, we covered a lot, and I kept using the cliche that we kind of studied everything in the kitchen sink. It was a very comprehensive plan. So for that reason, I think that's why we received 2 awards for the plan. Pace University gave us the Founders Award, and the New York Planning Federation gave us an award on our comprehensive plan. I know Pace University has let us know that people have called, as far away as Ohio, asking about our comp plan and seeing how it was done, because it is kind of a model and is unique for the area.
Right. And I guess the old saying, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery.
Yep.
There's certainly a number of municipalities that have taken our approach, which you actually brought to the town for the comprehensive plan, and have started to use that model for comprehensive plans across the state. So it's gratifying, I would imagine, just to see not only is your work appreciated, but it's actually being emulated by others. So let's kind of move on. I know that there's a number of other projects that you're kind of quarterbacking and working for with the town. I'm very excited about the transit-oriented development project that is currently being worked on right now in Nanuet. Maybe you can give a little overview for our viewers and kind of give an update as to where we stand with that.
Sure. So the Nanuet transit-oriented development plan really had its origins in the comprehensive plan from 2009. When we looked at the land use throughout the town, we saw that the areas we really wanted to focus in on were areas that were non-residential. Aside from the single-family residential areas, which have really been developed, we needed to look at our commercial corridors. So we actually started a study. We started studying from 9W to 303 to 304. And Route 59, we divided east and west, and I keep saying we kind of left the best for last. We left Nanuet for the end because we knew it was going to be a little more complicated, but also had the best opportunity for redevelopment because of the train station. So that started in 2009, and we had a series of workshops. I want to say around 2010 to 2013, we started workshops really getting into the zoning there. And we did some changes on Main Street. We had done it all the hamlet centers, basically allowing for mixed use, that is apartments over retail. But we knew we needed to do a little bit more in Nanuet because the zoning around the train station was light industrial office. And speaking to the public and just going through the plans, we realized light industrial office around a passenger rail station was really underutilization of the land. We were lucky enough to get a grant from NYSERDA, from the state, to study that land use around the train station further. So we got the grant in 2015, and we started the study in 2016. We're hoping to finish up actually the end of June. And we will have some draft zoning to start implementing around the train station. It's fairly simple. We have a passenger rail, the Pascack Valley line. I wish it was a one-seat ride, but it's a two-seat ride into World Trade Center or Midtown. And the land around it would make a lot of sense for apartments, for residential, for not only in terms of our studies we saw, not only for millennials who work in the city and would like to kind of take advantage of the amenities of living in Nanuet and in Clarkstown, but also for seniors who are trying to downsize. And I've seen that in other municipalities, other villages in the town like Suffern, where developments were actually built with the idea of it being for commuters, and actually seniors took advantage of them because they were able to downsize. They have all the amenities of a downtown center, and they can take the train and get into the city as well. Mm-hmm. So it works both ends of the demographic, and that's what we're working on right now. And I'm very excited about that too. I think it's going to have be a positive change for Nanuet, for the town and the county.
Right, and I know that there's been an enormous amount of public outreach. We've had a number of workshops. We work closely with the Nanuet Chamber and the Civic Association and other groups in Nanuet, and there's just been really great outreach on that. A lot of involvement with the citizens, and I think ultimately we're going to look at some increase in density in a very limited area, essentially from the Nanuet Mall south down pretty much to, I guess, Church Street, and it'll really be an opportunity for that area to be redeveloped. And I think, quoting Al Samuels, the head of the Rockland Business Association, this potentially could be one of the largest economic development projects here in the region if we do it correctly. And I believe with you leading the efforts and with the input of the citizens that we will. Certainly we're not looking at creating a city type approach there, but we are looking at some increased density that will allow for different types of housing to meet the needs for millennials and for seniors within our community, which I think will help prop up the business community in Nanuet as well, because there'll be a captive audience or a base there, if you will. Well, you were pretty much out of time. Joe, I want to thank you for your efforts here. Not just on the TOD project, but your consistent efforts since you've become our town planner. It's hard to believe 14 years ago, yeah. And really very confident in your leadership as our town planner. In Clarkstown, we're not approving, nor would I support approving the types of projects that we've seen in other locations within our county. We're trying to maintain the character and the quality of our community, and that really starts with leadership, and certainly leadership that's coming through your office and through our planning board. So I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And we'll be right back.